I honestly don't know how to start this video. I can't think of anything witty to say about board game websites, and so I'm going this route where I out myself as an incoherent rambler until we get to the good stuff. Besides, you've clicked the link, you've seen the title, you kinda know what we're going to talk about. That being a list of highly recommended websites and apps, inspired by a recent Geeklist by a very helpful BGG user that collated a bunch of board game relevant links. All of these exist to offer assistance and entertainment whilst you get your board game on. Alas, I take my waffles in the rear view, so let's do this. The first websites I want to throw some spotlight on are of the board game recommender variety, i.e. suggesting board games you might want to try out. There are three in particular that are worth a look, each with some fairly specific idiosyncrasies. First is Border.ee, which does pretty much everything right from a presentation perspective and takes your list of owned games from BGG as the basis for its recommends. Although you can also select your played games and those that you've rated above a 6.5. You can then tweak the output based on number of players and mechanics you're not interested in, and a few other filters as well. In terms of what it recommended for me, I was hoping to see some games I'd considered before or were on my shortlist, and there weren't an abundance of those types of games. But the more I looked at some of the games I'd not even heard of, which there were quite a few of, I found myself intrigued by a number of them. So consider this a good shout, especially if you're looking for lesser known games. Recommended.games at its core attempts to improve upon Board Game Geek's statistical approach to rankings by taking on board one of the consensus complaints about them. That being that they push forward games that are on the esoteric end of the scale and may not be as relevant to your average board gamer. Where this site differs, and using their own model as a base, albeit still using ratings collated from BGG, is that it uses your ratings as a guide as opposed to your collection. So if you don't rate games on BGG like I don't, then this ain't the ticket for you. Don't get me wrong, recommending based on how you feel about a game should definitely yield more accurate results, but it does require more background work. As a plan B for those in the same position as me though, it does allow you to manually select games that you like and then give recommendations on that basis, which, at least for me, worked very well with a nice balance of recommends, albeit not one synced to my existing collection. My final recommend here is the Quantic Foundry, which takes a simpler approach to all this recommending lark. You put in 3 games you know you like and it spits out what else might tickle your pickle. This is definitely the no fuss, no muss entry in this category. The most you can do is filter the selections based on whether they're more on the niche or popular end of the spectrum. There wasn't much in the way of left field choices here and very few brand new releases, but there was a solid output for me nonetheless in my testing. Next up is a very important category that it would be remiss of me not to mention, and that's price comparison websites for board games. These do what they say on the tin and are mostly obvious choices for whatever region you're in. But if you need to find a game at the lowest price possible, then look no further. I will say this though, Board Game Oracle does seem to have the most worldwide reach, offering a search engine for the US, Canada, the UK, Australia and New Zealand. The homepage is littered with daily and weekly price drops if you're an impulse buyer, and it can also search the biggest price drops for each retailer, so this is the gold standard. If you're feeling left out in Europe though, then Board Game Prices is one of 2 recommendations that are just the ticket, providing a suitably welcome list of recent price reductions and a separate list of popular and BGG's hot games, alongside its search engine for specific games. There's also tabletopfinder.eu that provides a useful homepage hub of information on current, popular and heavily discounted games, once again alongside its search engine. Now, whilst I accept this seems to be absent of Asia or Africa centric price comparison websites, I imagine a number of the companies listed on the above websites do ship internationally. Now it's time to talk organising. The absolute bane and pride of any self-respecting board gamer is their collection and how it gets stored. And although BGG itself can help with this task, it can't help in every tangible aspect. This is where GameShelf.io comes in, with a means to better sort your collection into pretty much any type of order you could think. Number of players, including BGG users' recommended player counts, complexity, BGG rating, mechanics, and so much more. You can also choose how the data is presented in any number of different layouts. Another website then that does what it says it's going to do and does it well. The other recommend in this category is a bit so-so presentation wise in terms of displaying your collection, looking like a bit of an image dump when trying to view it in a conventional way, but what sets Shelvey apart is that it incorporates box size into the equation. That's right, this is a website best used to sort your games into the right sizes for your shelves. Now, like most of these websites that fetch data from BGG, it is not perfect. I know for a fact that Seven Wonders Duel does not have a longer long side than Seven Wonders Architects. That aside, this could be a great tool if you're trying to figure out how to min-max the storage of your collection. Once again, it allows you to sort by a number of different categories, helpfully aligning with the myriad different ways we might want to sort things. Good stuff. A quick honourable mention goes out to myboardgamecollection.com as well, as it can take your collection and make it into a catalogue. I don't know how many people would actually use it for printing purposes, but why the hell not have it as a PDF you can show off to people with? What a great use of style sheets. Now, what about when you just want to look at some pretty pictures? This is where presentation and visualization websites come in, and we got a couple of winners here. The major one is geekgroup.app, which is an absolute pleasure to peruse. Yes, it only refreshes your BGG data roughly once a week, but you've got a solid presentation of your collection and logged plays. What sets Geek Group apart though is the pre-populated lists and reports it gives you. There's lists of games you played this year, your most played games, games that are new to you, your shelf of shame, and some cool tables breaking down your collection into categories and trends and many, many more. Of course, none of this works if your collection, logged plays and or your user ratings are not on BGG, but you can't have the cake without the treadmill, I'm afraid. A slightly clunkier but nonetheless impressive visualization site is Board Gamer Tools. You'll see lots of pie charts and lists here, and you have to manually upload your collection data and logged plays information, which isn't exactly clear. Once you get past the fact that the website is pretty slow, you can extract all sorts of goodness from it. Most games played and when you played them, breakdowns by all sorts of categories, various bespoke insights into your collection and played games, and there's even some challenges and visualization widgets you can peruse, all of which add up to a lot of interesting information at your disposal. Now, a lot of what we've talked about today integrates with Board Game Geek. In fact, pretty much all of it. So if you want to know how to make the logging and tracking of plays as easy as possible, then the gold standard is BG Stats. It does a great job of showing useful information of the games you've been playing, and yes, there's an upgradable premium version of the app which I won't comment on, as the free version has always been more than sufficient for my purposes. It uploads all of your plays to BGG for you and can sync with your collection on there, and so all that's left to say is this is a slam dunk recommend. There are some alternatives though if you've already tried BG Stats and didn't get on with it. BGG for Android seems to be a good one for you, guessed it, Android users, and Board Record is a viable alternative on iOS, although it's on the Google Play Store as well. You've also got Clepsydris and Board Game Buddy that I know even less about, but they're both on the Apple Store and Google Play. I honestly can't vouch for any of these four, but they likely all are competent at that base requirement. Moving on then, I often find myself paralysed by too much choice in what game I should play at any given time. So a quick word for a couple of websites that try and take that stress away from you and pick a game. Once again based on and fetching information from your BGG collection. Board Game Caddy and Cardboard Butler both allow you to filter what type of game you want to play. And voila, you get a recommend. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about this because this may or may not be worthwhile for you. It really just depends. And so all that's left is to talk about some miscellaneous places you might want to check out. Melodice aims to provide you a soundtrack for the particular game you're playing. It sets up a playlist taken from YouTube, by the looks of it based on user suggestions, and plays an unofficial soundtrack for your game for you. Shared Game Timer is quite ingenious if you're wanting to keep to a schedule. It tracks how long people and or your playgroup are taking for their turns. Now it's touted as a handy tool to avoid analysis paralysis and to avoid your game sessions turning into a grindy, unfun experience. Finally, why not end on a high note and give a shout out, not that it probably needs it, to Pub Meeple, the default method to use if you like to rank your games. Import your collection via BGG and spend the next few minutes or hours, depending on the size of your collection, rating 2 different games of yours against each other until you have a final ranking of your favourites. Simple yet powerful. I'm glad we ended on a high. And there you have it, a longer video than I expected, extolling the virtues of many a website and app out there that has utilities and tools up the wazoo to enhance your board gaming life. I was half tempted to show the most able ways for you to actually play board games online in a virtual environment, but quite frankly that's a whole nother video. Alas, I've been the voice of Benji, and this video has ended.